Very happy to take you through the session on sampling. Let's share the PowerPoint slide. Okay, so we'll take a closer look of the concept of sampling. So this is the scope of this presentation. The first one is to differentiate between census and population. The next one is definition of sampling. The third one is to learn about the various types of probability sampling, its advantages and limitations. So what is census? Census is a process in which we collect data from all the population available. So the blue circle indicates that the population, this is the population. And the orange circle indicates that these are the people from which we are collecting the data. So in census, we collect data from the whole population. That is census. In contrast to the word sampling, in sampling, you have a population, or we call it a sampling frame. That is the population from which you're going to take the sample. From this sampling frame, let's take in this example. We have 17 people in the sampling frame. We have 17 units in the sampling frame. So in that, we do not collect data from all of them, but we do some process and select few of them. So in this case, we have selected 5 to study them in detail. So here we select a sample from whatever is already existing. So in sampling, we do collect data from a smaller number, not from the entire population. Yes, why study a sample? Why not study a whole population? So as many of us know, when we go to buy a rice, we always check how the rice is by taking a handful of rice or fistful of rice and check the quality of rice. So why don't we check the whole bag of sack of rice? We believe that we will be able to sufficiently judge the quality of rice just by picking a handful of rice. Similarly, in research, we think that we'll be able to get the representativeness or be able to answer the research question by just studying the sample. So what is a sample or definition of the sample? Sampling is a process of choosing a representative portion of the entire population. So you take a representative portion. So note these words. Choosing is one keyword. The other is taking a representative portion. Okay, that's the other keyword. So why we do sampling? Because definitely we know when we collect data from a fewer sample, it is going to be cheaper. Cheaper not only in terms of money, we are going to save a lot of time, and also we are going to save a lot of human resources. The other is there is an opportunity to focus on quality of data. When we are going to collect data from few, definitely there's an opportunity to go deeper into the quality. Whereas if it is a big bunch, the quality may sometimes be jeopardized. Okay, now we'll go on to the types of sampling. So sampling can be either be a probability sampling or non-probability sampling. Probability sampling is where we have a known chance of being selected. Each person or each unit in that sampling frame has a known chance of being selected. Some places people do tell it is equal chance, but not always equal. Here the key word is they have a known chance of being selected. In non-probability sampling, the chance of selection is not known. So that is called as the non-probability sampling. So non-probability sampling are many times used in qualitative research. For the scope of this presentation, we'll focus more on the probability sampling. So probability sampling, there are commonly used types of probability sampling. We'll focus on that in this presentation. The first one being simple random sampling, systematic random sampling, stratified random sampling, and cluster sampling. A subtype of stratified random sampling is proportionate stratified sampling. So we'll see all these 4 types in this presentation. Other probability samplings are multi-state sampling or multi-phased sampling and PPS, which is commonly used in public health for large-scale surveys, probability proportional to size. So these two sampling methods will not be seen in this presentation. Okay, let's come to simple random sampling. As shown in the figure, we use some random method to select the sample. So what do we do? The process. So first, each member of the population has equal probability of being selected. So probability sampling does not mention equal. It just tells known probability. Whereas in simple random sampling, they have an equal probability of being selected. What is the procedure? First, as we saw in the previous diagram, first we make a sampling frame. That is the population from which we are going to draw the sample. We have to know each of the units or some way of identification of each of these units. Then we calculate the sample size, and then we select the sample from that either by lot method or using random number tables or computer generated random numbers. Using lot method, we usually do not prefer in research because it becomes difficult to verify whether the person has done a lot method or not. So for quality assurance purpose, we either go by random number table, and nowadays we generally prefer a computer generated random numbers. Okay, so this is an example of a random number table. So which we use in which are usually available at the end of statistical textbooks, or many of the epidemiological textbooks also have this random number table. So here we use this random number table to select people from the sampling frame. The easier option is computer generated random numbers. Usually we can use Excel or OpenMP, and there are multiple softwares which can generate random numbers. In Excel, it becomes easy because all of us are familiar with this, and this is the function we use equal to rand between 1 to 100, which means it will return me the random numbers between 1 and 100. So that's the function here. You can try it. So if you want one random number, just put it in one column. If you want 10 random number, put this formula in one cell and drag the cell downwards till how many ever, till 10 random numbers. If you want, you drag it for 10 cells, then you get the 10 random numbers between 1 to 100. The other is OpenEpi. In OpenEpi, this is the format of OpenEpi. So here we use the, just pick up the pointer. Okay, I'll use the mouse. Here we use the function called random numbers. So this is the when you open OpenAP software, in the side you will be seeing all these options. Here for random number generation, we pick up this particular option, and then we get this particular screen. And here we can note down the lowest number and the highest number. So if I want random numbers between 1 to 100, how do I decide it? Usually I decide it by the number of units in the sampling frame. So I had 10 units in the sampling frame, so I select the 10 units. How many would you like? So if I want to select 13 people from this 1 to 100, I put them as 13. Then it's just how I want to display the format of displaying. I put 5. You can choose any numbers. Let's see the result, and we'll be able to appreciate the difference. Yes. So this is the result. Once I click calculate in this, I get the result. This is the result. It returns me 13 random numbers between 1 to 100, and these are arranged in 5 columns. That is what we told in the previous thing. 5 columns and 13 numbers are arranged. Why an odd number of 13? Usually, actually I had an aim of selecting 10 people from this 1 to 100. But when I select 10, there is an option that there could be a possibility that the same number can be repeated. Let's see here. So 83 has come twice because since it's random number and random numbers are usually generated by replacing the number. Let's say 83 is selected, the system does not remove 83 from the list. It again generates from the same list of 1 to 100. So there could be a possibility that the same number has come twice. So it's always better to have some additional numbers, usually 2 or 3 we have, so that if there are repetitions, we can ignore this repetition and we can comfortably take 10 participants. So here I would ignore this repetition. I think no other repetitions are there. So I would go till 98. So I would be selecting the 34th participant, 74th participant, 68th participant, 83rd participant, third participant, which are listed in the sampling frame. Okay. The next, what are the advantages of simple random sampling? They are highly representative, mainly if the population is homogeneous, if all subjects are willing to participate. The disadvantages, I have to have the complete sampling frame. I have to have, let's say in the sampling frame there are 100 people or 200 people. I have to have some method of identifying them. That makes me possible to select them and go back to that particular person who is selected. But it becomes challenging in a large population. Let's say I want to go to a village and select people randomly. So first I have to make the sampling frame, which means I have to enumerate everybody and have the sampling frame and then go on to do the selection process. The whole process of enumeration itself may become challenging. So that's the major disadvantages with simple random sampling. Another major disadvantage is sometimes minority subgroups may not be included. Let's say there is a small community which very few people are there from that particular group in that whole village. There are high chance that this minority community may get missed out in the simple random sampling. These are the major limitations or disadvantages. Now we'll go to the other type of sampling method. The next type is systematic random sampling. So here we know the word systematic. It means I'm systematically selecting some person. So here if you can see, it very nicely depicts. So here I am systematically selecting the third person. So that's how it is here. We'll see how the process is being done. The first is the first unit is selected randomly. So often the question comes, if you are systematically selecting, where is the randomness? Here, the first unit or the first person who is being selected is selected randomly. The rest is a predetermined pattern. So we'll see how we are going to do. Let's say I want to study the incidence of influenza in a village with 800 households and the sample size is 100. So now with this data, I need to see the sampling interval. So the total households divided by the sample size will give me the sampling interval. The sampling interval here is 8. So what I would do is the first person I told will be selected randomly. So between 1 to 8, I would, or between the households 1 to 8, I would select them randomly. So when I select them randomly, let's say I got, say 3. So the third household would be selected. Then we told the random starts from the third house. Third house it starts and systematically I'll be going to the eighth house. Eighth house from the third house. So 8 plus 3 becomes 11. So I'll be going to the 11th house, then to the 19th house, then to the 27th house. Like that I will keep proceeding. So here the point to note is first we need to select the sampling interval, which is identified by the total number as well as the sample required for the study. After collecting the sampling interval, between the sampling interval, I would select the first person. After that, I would go systematically with the first house, and after that, I would add the sampling interval and go to the subsequent house. So now we'll see what are the advantages. The sample is evenly spread over the entire population, let's say village. There is a insurance that the whole village will be covered, and simple and convenient to adopt. Okay, it is very simple and convenient to adopt. And time and labor involved is relatively less as compared to the simple random sampling, because here I need not have the list of households or list of which household is where and all that. What I need to know is total number of households in that village with number I'm going to select, and maybe a rough format of how the village, how the streets are, how I could do. I can plan the way in which I'm going to go through the village, but I need not have the details of all the households. The limitation would be, though the first unit is selected randomly, after that is more or less controlled. It does not ensure representativeness, especially if the pattern is periodical. Let's say you're selecting every 15th house, and there is a scheme in which you have, let's say, a water pipe being set at every 15th house. So if you are testing for accessibility to water and your pattern comes in, you're selecting every 15th house. So in that case, you may get a biased sample. So if there is a pattern, then it may bias your sample. The next format is stratified random sampling. So as the word tells, you stratify the whole sampling frame and then select them randomly. So here what do you do? It's mostly used in whereas where the population is heterogeneous, you divide its strata, and within each strata they are more or less homogeneous. So here to divide the population into different strata, and then from each strata you can select randomly to arrive at the final sample. Best example mostly we use is, you want to select sample from a district, you can divide them into rural and urban areas, and select people from rural and urban area, or differentiate people between based on the socioeconomic status, and make sure that you select a sample from lower socioeconomic status and some sample from a higher socioeconomic status. So, a type of this stratified sampling is proportionate stratified sampling. Here, what do we do? The number of people we are going to take from each strata depends on the number of people available in that strata. So, let's take this example. There are two group of smileys here. So, one has a larger number. So, 4 into 3, 12. The yellow smiley without the specks is 12 in number. The smiley with specs is 8 in number. So how many I'm going to select from each strata depends on the number in each strata. So here I selected 1 is to 4. So here I select from the 12 smileys, I select 3. And from the 8 smileys with the spectacles, I would select 2. So this is called proportionate stratified sampling. People often confuse it and often write it as PPS, okay, a proportion to population size. It's not the correct terminology is proportionate stratified sampling. So keep a note of this. So what are the advantages of stratified random sampling is, every unit in this data has equal chance of being selected. The other is, there could be a representation from the minority subgroups. If I anticipate in random sampling, simple random sampling, we told that minorities could be missed. So if I want to collect data from minority groups also, I would divide them in based on the strata so that the minority group also gets represented. And the disadvantage is separate sampling frame for each strata is required. You should be able to differentiate little more detail on the sampling frame is required. Potentially requires a larger sample size, because when you divide them in strata, the sample size for each strata would become little higher. Okay, now we'll go on to the fourth type, that is cluster sampling. So cluster sampling, as we see from this figure, it is very clear. You have multiple clusters and you will be selecting a particular cluster for studying in detail. So the steps is, you define the population into clusters. So often as a student, I used to have a doubt. What is the difference between a cluster sampling and stratified random sampling? Clusters are usually divided geographically or divided by some natural phenomena. Strata are something which a researcher is interested, and they would be dividing them into different strata. Yes. So from the different clusters, you would be selecting the clusters by simple random sampling. And if the clusters are huge, larger, you may be selecting some representation from each cluster for your study. If the clusters are so small, some do study the whole cluster to for the study purpose. Okay. The advantages of sampling frame not required. Usually when you do cluster and you want to select everybody, then sampling frame is not required. But you want choosing a cluster and you want to select few people from that cluster, maybe we would require a sampling frame. Lesser cost and time, easy to operationalize. Disadvantages is only subset of clusters are there in the sample, and they may not be representative. Some clusters may be unique and they may not be selected for the study purpose. Clusters are many times internally homogeneous. Birds of same feather flock together. So when you choose a cluster, many times many of the characteristics are very homogeneous. Let's say in the example, we select a particular school. The type of students in the school are likely to be more or less similar, though there would be differences, but more or less similar. So how do we adjust this in the sampling as well as in the analysis? We use some special methods to adjust for this. These are called design effects in case of sample size. Okay, finally to summarize, we have come to the end of the session. We learned about what is sampling, what are the advantages of sampling, what is the difference between census and sampling, and we also learned about the 4 methods, commonly used methods of sampling. Especially we learned the term proportionate stratified sampling, and we caution about using this particular terminology. Thank you. Very happy to have you in this session.